folks. It is March 16th, 2023. Hobby Talk with PSA Canada. Brad is back from Santa Ana with all the discussion points. Or none. We'll find out. Luke, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. Doing
Yes, and
well.
now with daylight savings, you have light.
I do, yes. I
It's
am
pretty
bright.
glorious. It's pretty impressive. We were shocked. We thought, like, did you rearrange something? Did you do something? It's like, we have sunlight. What?
Shaved
Nonsense.
as well.
There you go. It's all part of the changes. It's all part of the changes. Brad's favorite Hockey 9 Thursday night evening stream wars. There's something else on. Lies. Lies. Anyway, so usual thing. It'll be kind of a little bit of hobby chat. We'll get caught up on what happened with Brad there when he visited down to Santa Ana. So what is some of his experience? We'll also get a little bit caught up also on what else is going on in PSA Canada land. So guys, I gave you a little bit of a heads up. I think you guys got a list. So do you want Luke or Brad? Either one of you. Do you want to kind of let us know some of the upcoming shows as we kind of filter in and start opening up the questions? So you want to fill in some of the upcoming shows?
Yeah. Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Okay, perfect. So starting next, we have March 29th. We'll be at the Mint Collective in Vegas. That's a little bit of a business mixed with pleasure.
Business.
Obviously.
Business. Yeah, Vegas. Business. But Brad, look, if you guys want to expense it, I'm happy to come by. I got time now. I can go over and help out with business at the roulette table.
So yeah, that will be it. And then Luke will be in Calgary on April 1st at the Thorncliffe Center. Then April 7th to 9th will be in Langley, BC for the Bosa show. Myself, Luke, and Blair actually is coming up with us from Halifax as well. So we'll have all three of us there. Mm-hmm. April 15th, we just booked our first show in Manitoba. So we're going to do a show in Winnipeg, which will be a first for us. So Luke will be going there. I will not be there on the 15th. Then we have Toronto is the 20th to 23rd, which we're very excited for. We have 8 people coming with us now to the show. So it's going to make life a little easier for everybody.
All right.
Then May 5th to 7th, Edmonton, and then May 12th to 14th, Montreal. So we've got that more or less in a, what's that, 6-7 week period. We have a lot going on. So we're super excited for it.
A lot of shows. Well done. Well done. So real quick, Logan here. What's up? Absolutely. Good evening, Eric. Good stuff. Good stuff. So let's chat about this one a little bit here before we get started. And those of you who are joining in, if you could hit the like button, Eric appreciates that. Personally appreciates that. Just throwing it out there. So, Brad, you visited Santa Ana. You got a chance to rub shoulders and hobnob with the bigwigs. So what's going on? What personal control do you now have over PSA that you didn't have before?
The entire thing. Just going to start grading my own cards here.
As you should. Now, finally, I can get my PSA 12s.
No, it was... really nothing changed on that front, but it was very productive. We met a lot of great people there during the show. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say during the show, during the invitational is what it was called.
Okay.
And we did a full tour of the facility, but my favorite part, hands down, was sitting with me and myself and Sherry had a one-on-one with the head grader at PSA who's been there for 25 years. Mm-hmm. That was 30 minutes with him. And then actually when we went out for dinner that night, we chatted for 2 to 3 hours. So it was, I learned an awful lot and I was more impressed as I asked a lot of questions. I was prepared and I got a lot of answers. So it was exciting.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So let me read a couple of these here. Yannick says, good evening. Absolutely. And Eric says, yes. Don't. He gets a little confused. He's a little dyslexic when he writes it. Forgive him. He means yes. But no, that's good. Now, as far as the chance you got to kind of discuss, with the head grader a little bit. So it was mostly on the particulars of grading, or kind of his process, or what specifically were you trying to pick his brain on?
Yeah, I was prepared for it, so I had a list of questions. My first question was, what do you do with all the card savers and top loaders? That's one that we hear all the time.
Okay.
When you submit a card, when the card actually reaches the grader, it's in the exact same holder. No one else takes the card out of the holder. The only person that does that is the grader. So if you submit a card and it has tape on the top, or if it's in a screw down or whatever it's in, that's what the grader receives. That's how he receives the card.
Mhm.
So there was always that conception that, oh, the cards come in, they come raw, they come in some sort of assembly line. There's lots of people have different ideas of how it works. But if you send your order in, that order comes into a box, it comes to the grader. That's exactly how it is. So that was one.
Sounds good. We'll leave a couple of questions. And if you guys got any questions about that, we can open it up as well. So Steve Jackson here has got a question. Good evening. Do you know why it seems PSA seems to avoid doing any on-site authentication for autos in Canada? I have a couple of theories, but I'll leave it open here. I can understand not doing on-site grading, but they seem to offer it regularly in the U.S. shows. Do you want to kind of fill in some of the blank? I have some reasons why I would think, but please.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm looking at now, we have a couple orders into PSA DNA. It's not something that we do regularly.
Mm-hmm.
We do it for a couple clients, and I actually have some personal stuff in there as well. So I can say right now that my orders have been there for 5 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So they are extremely backed up at PSA DNA. And even looking at our spreadsheet right now, you can see some of the delays on orders are the value duals, especially anything that is not on card from a manufacturer, where it has to go through the authentication process. It takes a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see those backups. So my thing is simply from a manpower standpoint, they don't have it. So
now I'm going to add one other thing to that as well. Even if the manpower wasn't a thing, and this will kind of play into, we were chatting a little bit beforehand, I was explaining to Brad that the wrestling company I enjoy, AEW, is going to be doing a Canadian tour this summer. But here's the thing. This company, doing what they do, has one thing in common with PSA. You wouldn't think so. Like, what the hell does a wrestling company have to do with PSA? Well, here's the thing. When you bring employees across the border to do work, there is a certain type of paperwork. There's certain things that you have to do. There are tax implications. It may sound really dumb, but literally bringing somebody across the border to work, to do so, it's not like a business trip. You do a business trip, you say, oh, get on a plane, fly down, we'll have a conversation, and we'll do whatever. That's sort of work, but it's a little bit more nebulous. It's more like a business trip. You can kind of treat it a little differently. When you're literally saying, I'm bringing you to a trade convention to do your job here, well, there's different sets of laws. As soon as you cross that border, if I take you from one state to another, it's relatively easy. There's still some implications, but it's not nearly as onerous. It's not as much you need to worry about. And if you're short-staffed, does it sound like it's worth that kind of effort? If you're short-staffed, like on top of everything else, and then you got to fill in additional paperwork, are they allowed to work in Canada? Are they allowed to do any of the work on that side? Are you going to try to skirt it? Probably not a good idea. You're probably going to have to file all your proper paperwork and do that. But also, if you're shorthanded, then okay, I have the opportunity to take a couple of these guys and take them to a couple of shows. Which shows am I taking them to? The one that they can go to locally, domestically, or the one that I have to cross the border and deal with some other things?
Yeah, no, definitely. And a little bit of an answer to that too. Do I see that happening in the future? Yes. There's no doubt in my mind. And also, do I see on-site grading coming to the expo at some point in the future by PSA? Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But as I say, as long as there's certain logistics in place, we always keep forgetting when we talk about Canada, US, is that we've got our own issues on our own end too. Even when we're getting goods and services across the border, what's customs? It's an added layer. It's another thing that we have to concern ourselves with. Mm-hmm. I went to the post office and get a package. Guess what? I got a nice little bill with it. Why? Because they're really happy to charge me for it. That's why. It's the same product. If I was sitting in Buffalo, if I was just another 45 minutes, 1 hour south of where I am, I could be getting the same package and I wouldn't have gotten that bill with it. As soon as it crosses that invisible line, something happens when business is concerned. Interesting how that works. Good evening, Baz. Absolutely. That's the thing. It's a boring answer, but it's also practical. Every time we talk about why don't they do this in Canada, why don't the card manufacturers come up for the expo? Mm-hmm. Why is it only Upper Deck? Well, because there's an added cost, and if they feel like it's worthwhile, then they'll do it. Otherwise, they won't. It's not like we don't buy Panini products. Of course we do. We buy Panini products. We buy Topps products. But they haven't been around in years. Mm-hmm. If PSA starts on-site grading at the expo, it will be a madhouse. It's true. It is true. Maybe they should get robots. I heard that works. Get robots. But yes. So anything else from the Santa Ana trip? So you got a chance to chat with them. You got a chance to discuss some of that. Anything else that caught your eye? You said you got a chance to see the facility. It sounds like you were impressed. Anything that you can talk about in particular that you're impressed with, or that you saw, or that you felt while you were there?
Yeah, just the overall size of the operation, and I think the steps from when a card enters the building till the card actually goes out the building, to see the amount of times it's handled, it's looked at, it's cataloged, it's stickered, it's scanned. It's quite the process. And the more I talk with Ryan Hogue, the president of PSA, he transparency is big on his list, and I think you'll see a video kind of, when the card does enter, right from the FedEx vehicle gets dropped off the FedEx truck into the shipping department and what it goes through. I think they're working on that. And I think when people see that, they'll be even more impressed with the operation itself and see the care and the handling that goes into it. So sorry, folks, we got a little Brady, Carlos's favorite dog, just had a little bark. Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. So does the dog have a bunch of other dogs that carry him? Is that what's going on? Sorry. No.
Yeah. Exactly.
Look, you got that one, didn't you? You got that one. So Jeff here says, "Good evening. Hey, Luke, thanks again for letting me use your deodorant. Appreciate you. There you go.
I haven't used that one since.
Probably wise. Probably wise. And I'm just curious. Is that in the image? Is that David Suzuki or is that Colonel Sanders? It's a very small image on my screen, so I'm not sure. It looks like either. It's one. It's one or the other. I feel like it's David Suzuki. That would be my first guess, but I'm not sure. Kind of curious there. Sean Red here. Does PSA regrade your card if you want it reslabbed? So there's been some changes to the policy on this in the past. Brad, what's the current state of it?
Yeah. So as long as the case is not cracked and the card's not affected inside, and it does still meet that, they will just reslab it. So you don't have anything to worry about. We had an interesting case this week. This was the first time that this has ever happened. So I had a Mackenzie at Collectors, who's in the CRC department, called and said, we sent a card in. It was a Pokemon card for a reholder. The declared value on it was $200 US. It was a PSA 10. I forget exactly what the card was. So when they were going to reholder it, they noticed the card had damage. The card was damaged. It had somehow water. They called it an environmental issue. So I don't know if it was water got in somehow or somehow the card got damaged inside. So when she called, she said, if you want to contact your customer, we want to buy this card back because it is damaged. It's in a PSA 10 holder. And they paid out the full value of the card. So that was the first time it's ever happened to me, but it's the first time I've ever heard of it too. So it was an environmental issue with the slab and PSA through their buyback warranty program. They bought it back at the declared value that the customer had, and we moved forward. So that was nice.
Gotcha. All right, so real quick.
So they bought it back at the declared value or the value of the card?
So this was it. So this is one of our big questions we have because we never faced this. So they bought the value of the card was somewhere in that around the same as the declared value. So I don't really have that answer.
Okay, can I?
Yeah,
so in the spirit of as much transparency as possible, allow me to present the opinions expressed are only those of Carlos. So only the person in this corner. So just to be clear, whatever is less. If they're running a business in a normal conventional way, if you underplay the declared value, that's what you'll get. That's how honestly I think they would assess it.
Yeah.
But it's worth 3 times that. You probably should have put that on the declared value then.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's why it is important to put that on it. I mean, that's why, when Carlos, you did your submission, you put your cards that were near and dear to you for the full value. You might have been able to put those at a lower level and get through the system.
I stuck in the ballpark of what I've seen those sell for.
Absolutely.
About the condition I went with. So I stuck in that. And it cost me extra. Like I pay extra for that, but it would be better. Like if something happens and I need to replace and I need to basically get compensated for it, I'd like to actually get compensated somewhere resembling the ballpark of reality. I don't want to get a couple of pennies back when I should be getting dollars. Go ahead, Luke.
But the only thing is, I mean, it like a lot of times throughout time, I mean, it takes 2 or 3 months or whatever to come down to get it done, right? So I mean, your declared value could be higher the time you submit, but then the time that it actually gets damaged or whatever, it could be half that price or whatever, right? So I mean, then what do you do?
Well, but Luke, that's why I phrase it again. I'm sticking strictly the opinion and the guy in this corner. That's it. it's going to be whatever's most advantageous.
Yeah.
If the market has declined by 95% and the number you gave was accurate at the time that it was submitted, but now, so it was $1,000 and now it's $50. You might get somewhere in the middle. They might work out a compromise with you, but I will be very shocked if you got $1,000 in that scenario. It would probably be closer to $50.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because that is a legitimate thing that folks would be. Now, it was a bigger issue. What I will say, it was a bigger issue when the turnaround time wasn't hitting the declared mark. If you're basically getting, if you are meeting the declared turnaround time and you're getting the turnaround time you're paying for and it's falling within that range, then it's less of an issue because at least, well, you could have picked the faster service. Again, it'd be kind of a customer service thing. I'm putting my customer service hat on. It's a conversation they'd have to have with them. But at the same time, at least you got what you were being offered. But if they offered you 3 months service and it took a year and the price changed because it took a year, as a customer, you have a much stronger argument to be like, well, if you had met within the timeline that you offered originally, we were fine. Now it's no longer fine because look at all this time that's gone by. And that was the issue with the backlog with a lot of folks because the market had changed so much since the beginning of submission and the time they got their card back. And it was a real issue.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just got a couple emails this week too that we submitted some cards at the Value Plus service, which is an estimated 20 business day turnaround. And I got an email because it was hitting close to that date. It asked, due to they were in-person autographs on cards. So they said, these cards are going to take longer to assess. Please add a week to 2 weeks on to the turnaround time, or we can send the cards back as is now. So you can see them, at least that's why I think even more so the PSA DNA is backed up a bit. Again, this is just my opinion based upon what I see, but you can see them now. I think you'll see more of those more of the dual cards, value duals, especially just being taken a little bit longer. So
for sure. Now let me read a couple of comments here. I'll get through them here. Steve says, thank you. I've heard people getting subs back from New Jersey office from people that sub to California office, guessing they're grading New Jersey now as well. They were trying to activate it. So do you know if they've turned it on yet? I know they've started the process. I know they've hired people. I know they've gone through they've gone pretty far down the line. Do they actually have people grading in New Jersey as far as you're aware?
From what I understand, that some of the TCG specials are being done in Jersey now.
Okay, that makes sense.
But anything like all the expresses and above, everything is getting done in Santa Ana, from what I understand.
Well, the thing though is that considering how big, if you guys check out GemRate, I do recommend it. I strongly recommend checking out GemRate. No affiliation, but the data and information they give, I think, is invaluable if you're interested in this. The amount of TCG stuff that has been going through those doors, having that capacity probably helps the overall turnaround time of everything because simply they can focus on this. That's such a decent size amount of submissions. Basically, Kevin just keeps sending them all the cheese string on. And I'm waiting for my return. I want to see my cheese string on. So Jeff Jones says it's David Suzuki. Thank you. I was able to get that one. So thank you for clarifying that. How many graders do they have and what do they do with the card saver? So the card saver question I know you kind of addressed. So how many graders do they have, Brad? Did you do a head count?
You know what, I tried when I went into the grading room. It was kind of interesting to see, but it was it's exactly what you'd think it would be. Cubicles with lots of guys, very dark, with their lights, their computer screens in front of them. And yeah, it was quite the operation to see. But I think they definitely have over 100 graders. I don't know how many people, obviously they work at different times and shifts, etc. But one of the things being a business owner and being self-employed and on the restaurant side of things, during a busy peak time, you'd find me in the dish pit helping out. We'd have, 300 people in a restaurant. I'd go wherever they had to go to make sure the operation kept going. If it was jumping on the line to be a cook or picking up glasses, doing those jobs that weren't there. The coolest thing that I liked when I talked with Reza, who's the head grader at PSA, his desk is right in the middle of the grading room. And right next to his desk is Nat Turner's desk. Right. Which I think is just, when you're the leader of a company and you put yourself right where you have to be, you're not hit off and anywhere else in an office somewhere is overlooking the bay. You're right in the middle of the action. And I thought that was super, super impressive to see. So
interesting. But so you're saying Steve Cohen did not come in and personally grade cards for you?
No, Steve Cohen did not personally grade any cards for us.
That's unfortunate. That's a missed opportunity right there. Missed opportunity. Blaine Hamilton, good evening. PSA going to keep the $22 TCG special through April, or was that information legally invitational? You're assuming they tell Brad things. Even when he asks.
Absolutely. So I have no idea on that, to tell you the truth, but based upon what I see, my personal opinion will be that they'll continue on with this TCG special. It's got a nice flow of cards coming in. I don't think they're getting overwhelmed. If they want to have a 2 to 3 month window, so if they're grading 1 million cards a month, let's say they want to. Again, these are just my thoughts looking at numbers that I see. I mean, me and Carlos talk about this all the time off the show, but if you have the capabilities now to grade 1 million cards and that's kind of your wheelhouse, then you probably want to have 2 to 3 million cards always in turn. So that keeps the 60 to 90 days going. So that's very good.
Yeah. And I also think it's been very profitable. I think the TCG segment has proven, like right here. Just string them on. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Kevin. But like, if we're being realistic about this, I think the goal is right now. I feel like they're really, to Brad's point, I feel like they're in the sweet spot right now. It feels like they're in a good spot. If they can hover, it doesn't have to be exactly 1 million cards, but if they get 800,000 to 1 million cards every month consistently, then there's no real reason to change anything. The TCG side of it seems to be rolling pretty well at this price point, and the TCG folks seem pretty happy with it, and they're submitting enough stuff to make it worth PSA's while. So that's good. Of course, as a sports card guy, I would love to see, us get that price point or lower. Like, obviously, for bulk, that would be really nice. But yeah, if they're getting 800,000 to 1 million cards, I'm just giving that range as like a hypothetical. But if they're getting 800,000 to 1 million cards a month, and next month is 800,000 to 1 million cards, they're like, stay the course. Maybe they'll pick a little segment and be like, all right, for the month, we'll give you this one, this little category, this specific thing, and then kind of shift around a little bit from there. But for the most part, they'll kind of just leave it be. Luke, just any thought on this from a business standpoint? Do you think it's going to kind of hover this way, just playing around a little bit here and there and month by month?
I just think it's kind of weird that it's like 1979 and up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would they choose a date like that or whatever? I mean, we can't send like 77 Star Wars or like 64 Mickey Mouse ones or things like that. Like, I don't know why that makes a difference.
I feel like I don't think it really does, but at the same time, I feel like maybe what they would end up doing then is probably they would pick like, movie licenses, or literally be like, all right, this month Star Wars. Like, they would just specifically pick and choose, really make it niche, give you like a specific special for this specific thing. Here you go, Star Wars, go for it.
Yeah.
I think
kind of 89 back. To me, the 89 is like, I mean, that's the different card stock. That's when the modernization, an Upper Deck came out in 89, etc. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's there, but the vintage cardboard really starts in 89. So I don't know what the difference would be from 89 to 79. That's a question I didn't ask, but I'd like to know the reasoning behind that. So
yeah.
Look, as long as 88 tops is never vintage, I will not allow it. Mm-hmm. I refuse. I will never allow it. I don't care if it's 50 years from now. It will never be vintage. So Steve Jackson asked a question. In your opinion, how long were they spending per card grading? So in your observations, how long were you seeing that?
No, absolutely. That's one of the things that, again, you're kind of overwhelmed when you're looking at so many different angles, mm-hmm. but you could see someone. If I was a card grader, I could grade a lot of modern cards in 30 seconds to a minute. Mm-hmm. There'd be no doubt in my mind when you look at the basic things. And then obviously there's cards that we look and we spend a lot more time. There's a whole team there. So when you talk about a card that, especially cards that have significant value or questions, there could be 4, 5, 6, 7 graders that all look at the card. That card may take an hour, could take an hour. It could take longer. The questions could be asked about it. So there's no real set time, but I think any card grader that was there grading modern cards could grade a card in a minute.
I'll be completely. I think your number is spot on. Like, I'll be honest, when I submit my own cards, I'll look them over because I'm spending my own money. I want to make sure that I'm not wasting my money sending in something, unless it's PC, in which case I care a little bit less. I'll be a little looser with it. It is very hard for me to imagine on even a modern-ish, even going to the 80s, a modern-ish card. I don't need more than 60 seconds to evaluate the flaws, unless the only time I might move that a little bit is if it's maybe a set that's borderless. and I'm trying to figure out how the centering is actually going on. Like, how far off is it? Like, or is it bang on, or is it far off? But if it's got a border of any kind, it's like 45 seconds a minute tops. You can pretty much make out the surface. You can make out if there's a major centering, a surface issue, or if the corners are messed up or the edges.
Yeah,
60
I agree
seconds.
with you. I think people spend too much time looking at cards. Me and Luke talk about this quite a bit. But honestly, you can overanalyze at points, especially on newer modern cards.
Mhm.
Like you hold the card up, you look at it under a light, you look for scratches, you look at centering, you look for corners. You know, if you have a TCG card, it's a Pokemon card, you want to check the hollow, see if there's any scratches, you visually look at the centering. I mean, it's a 30, 45-second process. So.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I have never seen a flawless card
Right.
in my entire life. Be it PSA 10, be it SGC 10, be it BGS 10, I have never seen a flawless card. I have seen a flaw in every single card that I've ever looked at in my life.
Yeah. That was a good. I asked about print lines on the back of a lot of the new product that's being issued. You know, you look at a lot of the Prism product that's out there, and you turn a card over on the back, and you just see print lines, print lines, print lines.
Mhm.
So does that? But they come back as PSA 10s. If PSA or any grading company out there took those factory print lines that are on every card produced now, there'd never be a PSA 10.
Mhm.
So
That's fair. So Nigo here asking, speaking of deals, I like the angle. I like the segue built into it. Will there be any deals for the Langley show?
we'll know April 1st. I guess that's the best way.
That's true. Like I said, it goes month by month, right? That's kind of what we talked about a little earlier.
Yeah.
Kevin, Luke, are we going to the National with Brad this year? Are you getting into the luggage? It's like, will you be carry on?
Yeah, I'm going.
There you go.
I'm pretty sure I'm going.
Good.
Like 99% right now. So
I love it.
Nice, nice. All right. See, that should be content, and possibly drama, and possibly content.
Maybe we'll all go work and volunteer for PSA.
yeah, that's cool.
And make sure then spend 61 seconds per card.
See, if we volunteer, we don't have to fill the forms out, right? For the cross border, work kind of thing or whatever. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That could be pretty good. It's like what happens? Like, this card is flawless. Isn't that your card? Flawless.
It was good. Some of the other things too. Speaking of what we did there, we had it. The second day was course, more or less presentations put on, and Jackie Curiel, who's been at Collectors forever now, she's every time I've ever asked her and needed something, she's always been there, and she delivered a course on fraud, with all the different holders over the years and things to look at and things that they're doing. That I thought that was very, very informative, just to see how much they are on top of this. I know Dave's not in the chat tonight, but he talked about the Magic Johnsons, the different cards that are out there, and every day PSA is dealing with that, and they have a team in place to monitor, and they're not leaving any stone unturned. So it's impressive to see, regardless, if you're a PSA fan, etc. But these companies are taking it very seriously with all the fraud issues that are out there. So it's nice to know. I think I mentioned it. Did I mention it? Oh, I mentioned it on your show, Carlos, on last Friday night.
Yep.
But PSA, if you are purchasing a card and you have doubt about it being in a proper holder, if it's being potentially a fraudulent situation, you can contact PSA directly and you can send the card into them for them to analyze that, absolutely no charge anytime. And they're happy to do that. So if you do have a question about a card, obviously buyer beware, make sure you utilize all these services. So don't just go buy a card, a PSA 10 Jordan from somebody. Not that, people are just going to pull that out, but if the deal seems too good to be true, it usually is. But if you do have doubts and you're about to make a deal, simply contact PSA and they'll take care of that for you.
Yeah, no, it's a good call out. And also, like, in the spirit of being as fair as possible on this, it's also good for their business. At the end of the day, having counterfeit slabs out there misrepresenting the brand is not a good thing. And if they can detect that, obviously they would prefer it's all legit every time. That would be the better result. But if for some reason it's not, they would rather know about it. Like, realistically, they would be better off knowing, hey, there's a counterfeit on there. How good is it? Oh, this is actually pretty good. Oh, we might want to pay attention to that. That gives them information. That gives them the opportunity then to potentially do some countermeasures. We've seen the slabs get modified over time. And it's because over time you have to keep adjusting. No matter how many times you adjust, somebody will come up with a replica of it. So you got to keep consistently tweaking and adjusting the design, even if it's these little minor things. We've seen it. If you ever check out the multiple generations of it, you'll see these little small tweaks all over the place that were the result of somebody at some point got the idea, hey, maybe we should tweak this a little bit more.
Yeah.
So this is a good point from Logan. I don't know if we should believe Brad on April the 1st. If there's a deal in place, might be a prank. Maybe. Nova says N1 visa. Very true. Kevin says, don't maybe book a flight to third wheel with Brad and Sherry. You might have to. Eric says, I think the counterfeiter should stop doing that. It's not nice. It's true, Eric. It's true. It's not very nice. But yes. Aside from that, I think so. And we can, along the way, if there's any other questions related to kind of Brad's experience with the PSA, folks, by all means, feel free to ask. And also, if you come up with any questions after the fact and you're checking it out on the replay, feel free to throw them in the comment section, and then the team can take a look and kind of answer to it. Also, any questions related to PSA submissions as well, here to answer those. And then anything else you guys want to chat about, feel free to throw that in the chat. So we'll hang out for a little bit and chat. So, kind of in the meantime, just kind of a little side question. Obviously, we're having a little bit of fun coming off of it. So right now we're in a bit of do we have any other product we had the SP Legends product. Is there any other product that's coming out recently right now? We had Cup, we had SP Legends. Is there anything else coming out? This is AMG hat on. Is there anything coming up here?
Series
Allure
2
came out.
Yeah, Lure came out as well.
Oh, okay, right. Yes.
Which there's another product that I like for the price point. You know, at 150 bucks a box. I like the product personally. I think it's underrated.
Mm-hmm.
But Series 2 comes out in 2 weeks. Upper Deck Series 2.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
I just had the product list in front of me.
All right, no problem. While you're reading that, I'll read a couple of these here.
Yeah.
So did we get a word on the Bird and Magic? I think we had a little bit. I think the conversation is kind of ongoing.
Yeah. So when I was telling the story about the Bird and Magic and the stamp guy at dinner on that Wednesday night, that was the moment that they actually caught the guy in Colorado, and it was pretty ironic. I'm sitting there asking a question for Dave, and at our table, Ryan Hogue, who I mentioned a few times tonight already, but honestly, you guys, Carlos, you make fun of me sometimes for saying, "Oh, he's a nice guy," because I do tend to say that.
I think he's about to say he's a nice guy, Luke. Luke, I'm concerned that he's about to say he's a nice guy.
But I genuinely mean this. Like he's just like a guy that I went to high school with, and we had lots of good talks. And but I'm sitting here telling him and Reza, the head grader, the story, and all of a sudden another at the table next to us stood up. I heard them say they got the guy, and they started talking about how they've been chasing this guy for 10 years, PSA has, and they found him in Colorado, and it was an 82-year-old man. Obviously, there's more people behind it. It's not just him that was doing this. I'm sure it's a quite big operation that they had in place, but it was pretty ironic. I'm talking about the story, asking the question for Dave at the same time. They catch this guy like within a 20-second window. So,
yeah. And one of the keys is that I was listening to some podcasts that were talking about. I think they interviewed one of the guys who was one of the early known victims of the person in question, and he was saying how certain things added up and certain things didn't add up. So it was a good kind of a cautionary tale that you really do have to do your diligence. Doesn't guarantee everything. You're going to have to be diligent about it, but at the same time, it's like wherever there's a financial incentive, there's always the incentive to cheat. Wherever there's a sufficient money in the play. And at the time that he was doing that, the money wasn't as big as it is now, which is funny. But even at that time, there was plenty of incentive to do a lot of those things, and it's only continued. It's only gotten worse. There's more money to be made, right?
Yeah.
Nova Grower says, "See any whales while whale watching?" Go ahead.
Sorry, April 5th. April 5th is the approximate date for Series 2 release.
Right.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Hopefully that maintains. But one of the things we kind of talked about it offline, but one of the things that I think has been unfortunate is that a lot of the Upper Deck release dates, they're not holding. It's just one of those things like we'll take it as a tentative one. If they can have it before the Spring Expo, that'd be great. If a couple of weeks before would be great, but if they can at least catch the Spring Expo, I think that'd be great for the product. That'd be great for everybody.
But I think Series 1, Series 2 usually is on those dates. I don't think they have too many delays on those.
Yeah. When Grosvenor Distribution sends me the updated list of products being released, it's always on. I mean, it could be a day late, but they don't send that out until it's confirmed the product is in, like, more or less in the shipping department, ready to ship to the distributors. So,
right. Sounds good. So Nova Grower says, "See any whales while whale watching?" Question mark.
No, it's funny. We went out on a boat and it was cold. It was when we went to California. It was really cold.
Wow, the Canadian going, it's cold, you guys.
I know
Wow.
it was very cold. But yeah, we didn't see any whales, but we've seen. I mean, when you go up and down, I mean, what was it called? I forget that bay. But Laguna Beach, is that how you pronounce it?
Is it Laguna Beach?
Laguna Beach, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we went up and down that strip. I mean, it's just, $1 million house after $1 million house.
Oh, well, at that point, yeah, for sure.
It was something to see.
Sure, we're not saying Bowman's best baseball. Yeah, that's one that's come out. That's true. That's a good one. Kevin says Scarlet and Violet Pokemon. I'll take your word for it. I'll care when the Chiefs Trigamon happens. Until then, we're not even discussing this.
Yeah.
No regrets as the conditions to those SP Legend cards is brutal. I've seen a little bit of a hit and miss. There's been some autographs that haven't quite held up to it, but like I said, there's other things we critique about this product. We'll be nice. We'll be nice today. How does PSA view or scrutinize centering on borderless cards? IA Top Stadium Club. I've seen BGS give lesser subgrades for centering on these and didn't quite understand why. Now, this is a good question. This plays into our 60-second thing. For borderless cards, it is a little bit tricky. I'll tell you what I do. I'll usually use certain landmarks on the card, like the player or maybe the logo of it. But again, it's hard to tell where it's supposed to be. Like, if you know where it's supposed to be, then you can orient everything else relative. Like, for example, let's say Bowman Best was borderless. Or let's use Top Stadium Club. You got the Top Stadium Club logo. How far north or how far south of the top border is it? Or bottom border, or whatever the case may be. And how far left to right is it? If you know where it's supposed to be, then you can be like, all right, this is pretty close. This is pretty much bang on. There you go. Good centering. As opposed to the alternatives.
Similar to that, also as well as with the Young Guns. So a lot of the Young Guns don't have borders like that too. But what I've looked at is where it actually says Young Guns is how centered that is. You know, because it could be more to the left or more to the right or whatever. And I've found that all my Tage Thompsons from 2017 came back PSA 9s or less. So
maybe don't listen to you on that one.
well, no, because they were all off.
Yeah. So what I'll say though is that Luke is kind of hitting on the same thing. You find some landmark on the card. You're looking for logo, text, or the player themselves or something. Because if you see two, I'll give you an example. Let's say it's a full bleed card, full bleed photograph. Like Stadium Club is a good example of this. Let's say you got two pictures of the player side by side and you find two copies and you're looking at it. And one of them, maybe their foot goes off the edge of the picture and the other one is completely cut off. In one of them, you can see more of their foot. There you go. All right. That's a bit of an indicator. Okay. It helps you kind of orient the centering a little bit and go, or maybe it's like way cut off and the other one's a little bit closer to reality. It's like, even though it's a full bleed picture, you can kind of get the idea. All right. There's a definite difference in the centering between these two because look at how the picture's been cropped in one versus the other.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think sometimes people get caught up on the Young Guns. Remember how Luke just said it. Look at the border at the bottom where the Young Guns are. Don't judge centering by the image. I don't have the exact explanation, but Upper Deck at 7 years ago sent me a full explanation on centering on cards. So the image is projected down onto the sheet when it's produced. Billy will probably be able to give it. So you can have some of them are very clear, like the Austin Matthews 2000 Young Gun rookie. You can see there's an SCI on the boards that you can see. Some show the full eye, some show half the eye, some don't show any of the eye. That's the image on the card. It's not part of the centering.
Right. Sounds good. Logan here says, isn't O-Pee-Chee Platinum coming out soon?
Yeah, I tried to find the email just so I could see exactly. I don't have it here right now. I should have, but
that's all right. But yeah, feel free to keep throwing in questions like that because those are fun. And it's a good question. Anything that's borderless is tricky. Those are just some tips and tricks. I promise you, though, you'll find probably an issue where it won't work. You'll have to adjust accordingly to the issue. It's issue by issue. I'm just using examples of ones that I've seen in the past that have worked pretty well. But again, we're all kind of guessing. When we don't have a border, we're kind of guessing. Borders make our lives easier for that.
And don't spend too much time on that. You know, when you're looking at cards, if everything else on the card you think is perfect, again, unless it's blatantly off-centered, just don't spend that much time on it. Send it in, look over everything else. Make sure the centering's there. Make sure the corners, the edges, the surface look good. Then submit it. So
sounds good. Now, speaking of which, it hasn't quite official yet, but I've been kind of enjoying it from afar. So how many Aaron Rodgers rookies should we be sending in? How many Jordan Love rookies should we be sending in, Brad? What do you think?
I'm interested to see what's going to go on with Jordan Love. You know, Aaron Rodgers, I couldn't care less if he was wherever he ends up. I know, sorry. I'm not a fan. I've never been a fan, but I'm very curious to see, after listening to guys that know football and listening on the Friday night show talk about, you know, how many years Aaron Rodgers was behind Brett Favre and all these. I didn't realize all that because I started to think Jordan Love was done. But I'm very curious, and I hope for Jordan Love. I hope he does good. I think it's going to be an exciting opportunity for him. So,
Well, I'll tell you, it's indicative of nothing else, just that what it is. If you're ever curious, and again, we don't have any sponsors here, but maybe we should get one. If you're ever curious though, and you want to get the vibe of the room in a very quick, simple way, check out what's going on with ComC and the Jordan Love cards. I can tell you for a fact that I had some that were sitting in my ComC account that I ticked up a little bit just in advance, just in case. Sold, no problem, very quick, sold real fast, because some folks are anticipating. They're kind of and right now it's all projecting. The beauty of it is that even though the deal's not done, it's close enough now that some people are starting the speculation process. So that you're starting to see the prices, the cheapest copy of them are starting to go off the board, and then suddenly the price is starting to creep up a little bit because hope springs eternal. Right now, everybody's 0-0. Nobody's got a win. Nobody's got a loss. You don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be folks that are going to be very optimistic, try to load up to it to anticipate if it starts well. But it could be a disaster. Who knows? Like, it's really hard to say. And even if Rodgers goes to the Jets, that could be a disaster too. It happened last time. I was already joking with some guys that I know. It's like, so should we be getting the Vikings jersey for 2024 now, or should we wait for later? What do you think? If he's going to go full Favre, he's going to be in Vikings next year. So he's got to go to the Jets first, flame out there, and then go to the Vikings. Could be very exciting.
I'd be interested to see what's happening with Zach Wilson.
Right now, not good things are happening to Zach Wilson. Not good things. Not good things. Look, on the Friday. Go ahead.
Good things are happening with him personally, but
that's not carrying him through anymore, Luke. It's just not enough. It's just not enough. Look, I'll put it this way. I'll give you guys a Zach Wilson update on Friday. At least okay. I have a representative card of Zach Wilson, and we can check and see how it's going. We can check and see how it's doing. We won't do it here, but we can do it tomorrow. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. Ron here says, gonna be bad times for doing the Patriots, and I'm here for it. That's fair. That's fair. I get you. Nico says, I normally personally ship with BGS, and on the topic of declared value, the reason why I put down, say, $100 in an order that seriously is like 3,000 is because I don't want to be killed by duties. That's totally fair, but you do create a problem for yourself. So, like I said, the way and please, guys, add to this. I totally understand it. For shipping to myself, I totally get that. When I ship my cards, I'm very conservative with my declared values because I'd like to spare myself some. However, if it pertains to matters of insurance, I don't want to suffer the consequences because what you put down here, that's fine. But if you did this with PSA, they'll give you $100.
Yeah.
They go, fair enough. All right, $100. That's what you wanted, right? That's what you said it's worth. Fair enough. Here you are.
Yeah. You know what, too? One of the things with my role with PSA and how it's expanding and how we got some really good things coming down the pipeline, which are not official yet, but I can talk about them a little bit.
Sure.
Is the goal and the mandate is for, and when I say me, I mean me and the team, that we're all one team up here, and with Luke, Kevin, Pascal, Sherry, everyone, but we want to make it as seamless as possible. Crossing the border, bringing the cards back, shipping. We want the customers to have the least amount of shipping, least amount of worries. So as we continue to grow PSA Canada right across the country, we want to make sure we have all this stuff taken care of. So like Nico, you don't have to worry about putting the value underneath. You're going to be insured for the proper value of your collectible going across the border and back. We want to make it seamless. And PSA does the exact same thing. They want to work directly with us and to make sure that we can do that. So you don't have those stresses because it's stressful. Like Nico just said, when he puts a $3,000 card and he puts $100 because he doesn't want to get taxed on the way back. If something goes missing, you're watching the card. I mean, we ship things daily and it's nonstop. Luke, our shipment yesterday, or I shipped on Tuesday. Yeah, we shipped Tuesday from here, and Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., all our boxes were at PSA delivered in St. Anna. Luke, you shipped Wednesday, and this morning the boxes arrive there perfectly. But it's always stressful. Even our boxes are insured under PSA's policy, but it's still stressful, right?
100%. We
Oh,
sleep better when it's,
Carlos,
when
I
it says
lost
it's
you.
delivered.
You're mute,
Oh,
Carlos.
Sorry, that was me. So all I was going to say was
Yes,
that
I love that you just. I have to interrupt you. I love that you. That's the first time I've seen you do that. I do it all
I'm
the
trying
time.
I'm trying to win a card on eBay.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
my attention is half diverted. I'm trying to make sure I get the snipe in at the right moment here. I'm trying to be all sneaky like. So you got me on this one. So one for you, Brad. So the thing is that when you're a collector, or if you're doing it for resale value or whatever, like it doesn't matter. Both scenarios are valid. It's the same thing. There's always an anxiety to shipment. All of us, I remember the joke on the Friday show. Sometimes people would be like, when I do the ship my cards thing, they'd be like, well, why do you choose FedEx or whatever? You know you're going to get hit with the fee, you're going to get whatever. Yes, but when they ship, I know I'm getting it the next day. And I want to minimize the amount of extra time that it is in flight. I want you to put the package in with the courier or whoever. They grab it, they throw it on a plane, they fly it over, and then I go pay the fee. Somebody knocks on my door, and we're done. I want it in my hands as quickly, with as little additional friction or time in between as humanly possible, as just for me. That's what I want. And I'm paying for the privilege. And I understand that.
You want to know what I did this week too? Steve, our buddy in Saskatchewan, Carlos. So I sent a package to him and he likes Canada Post.
Right.
So I sent a package to him, and he goes, "Yeah, I don't know what happened here, but it says it was shipped from Halifax yesterday and it got delivered and signed for in Halifax today." I actually, when I filled out the shipping on the Canada Post prepaid boxes, like those big boxes, I forget exactly what they call them. I put to Brad. I mixed up the shipping. So I shipped it to myself. So I went to Canada Post, shipped it back. So it went to the post office, then shipped back to me. First time I've done that one. Chalk that one up to a little bit of a mistake.
Did you give Brad a good mark for quick shipping? Quick turnaround?
Super fast.
Give yourself a nice, like, great job, Brad. Great packaging. Great job.
Yeah. And then I tried to get the money. I said, well, I told her what I did at the post office, and we're there every day. I said, can I get a refund for that? Absolutely not.
No. They're like, we provided the service you paid for, sir.
Yeah.
All right, so Steve here says, do the graders themselves print the labels, or do they just mark the grades on a sheet and then something then go to somewhere else?
Yeah. So the graders enter it into the computer system, but then no, there's a whole other department that prints the flips.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's
a big process when it goes through. Also, what PSA does now is they image every card front and back when the card arrives. Mm-hmm. So when your order is processed and it arrives, someone's actually taken an image of the front and the back of your card prior to it hitting the research team. When it hits the research team, then it goes to the graders, and then it will do an imaging after as well, after the card is graded. So your card's front and back are photographed 2 times.
Mm-hmm. Now that can create some interesting scenarios, because I've definitely seen some where there's a discrepancy between the initial photos and then the resulting photos on the other end. So that creates an interesting question.
So one thing, the photo that is taken at the beginning, and they mentioned this to me, is people are like, oh, well, they're taking your cards out and they're photographing them. But the actual cameras that they use, they crop out the holders. So they just get the image of the card, which could cause a little bit of a image issue.
No, for sure. No, but I'm just saying it does create a certain accountability step, because you as the person viewing it can see. And if something does happen, if something occurs between point A and point B, you've got 2 sets of images to compare with each other. So I think that is kind of interesting. So you're saying Zach Wilson is not going to save the New York Jets, is what you're saying. I feel like that's what you're implying with this emoji. Not quite working out for him. Not so far. Not so far. Peter Collector, good evening. How many other bulk submitters with the PSA Summit /Invitational with you last week?
10. Yep. Nice. So there was 10 there, and who we kind of bonded with right out of the get-go was Kyle from KK Sports, based in Florida. Him and his girlfriend. Oh boy, can't believe her name just slipped my mind. Maybe Sherry's in the chat; she can say it.
Well, I can say that I saw a social media post with KK Sports cards and some guy holding a card. I don't know. I think he's on the show.
Yeah,
I saw something like that. Yeah. Was it you, Luke? It was you, wasn't it? No, I think it was the other guy.
Yeah, what a business that they've developed down there. I mean, just he's a super nice guy, and um, again, I just did it again, Carlos. He's a super nice guy. But it was,
Drink.
yeah. but
Luke, shot.
but their operation, they grew from just him and his girlfriend. They have 36 employees now doing live whatnot streams. They're kind of developing their whole own little mini ecosystem where they have live platforms selling on whatnot. So they'll take cards raw, they'll grade them, then they'll sell them for their customers as well. But yeah, he's up to 36 people working, and very passionate guy, collector. Yeah, I was very impressed with him. We're going to connect at the Mint Collective as well. So I think he is, from everything that I can understand, he would be the largest group subber to PSA.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Let me scroll through here real quick. Got to run, so have a good one, Blaine. Shipping can be hard sometimes, trust me. Eric knows those feels. Eric knows those feels.
I won't comment on that one, Eric.
Stagger Joel, did I miss any big news? Other than Brad making social media posts and hobnobbing with the biggies? No, nothing too crazy. Like, honestly, it was one of those things where I wasn't expecting anything earth-shattering per se, but I think it was good to get... I'll present it this way, Brad, and you can add anything if you want. I think it was good for you to get FaceTime with the people that are involved in it, get a little bit of a taste of it from your perspective so you will have a better understanding of what you're talking about as far as when you're discussing a lot of the elements with folks, and then also kind of reinforcing the existing relationship you have with them. That's the way I would present it.
Yep, that's it. And I made a commitment to PSA for the future, and we'll have some good things coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. Any news that's going to come out of that will probably come at its own time when it can be announced. It probably won't be in this format. If we ever do have like a big piece of news, honestly, it would probably make more sense for me, for myself, Brad, Luke, any combination therein, for us to sit down, record, explain everything, and then present that to you as one package. So here it is. If it comes down as a big news. I mixed up, Peter Collects here says, I mixed up the address on those flat rate boxes once, got routed to Toronto and back, briefly thought about saying return to sender, but thought better of it. Probably once. Don't play those games.
That's a good idea, though. I never even thought about that. Put return to sender on it.
Yeah, you can play some games. You can play some games if you want to, if you want to take your chances. So one and only Hawk, good evening. I received a graded card back that now contains a scuff/dent on the front surface that wasn't on the card when I submitted it. How does PSA handle these situations? So this is where you could use the image to kind of help you with this, because you can kind of get a sense of whether it was there in the initial scan versus when it was there in the final scan. So that's kind of why I say there are scenarios. I could foresee scenarios where there could be discrepancy between the two, and then conversations have to be had. But as far as this scenario, how do we handle these situations?
So for us at PSA Canada, it depends upon the value of the card.
Sure.
How we're going to handle it personally. Like, is it worthwhile? If the card's worth $50 or $100 or something along those lines, we'll just buy it. We'll just buy it back ourselves. I think that's the easiest thing to do from a customer service standpoint to make it easier. If the card does have a high value, then we'll just put in the request for one of our customers, or if you submit it yourself directly, you can do it. Just simply go to the CRC page, take pictures front and back, put all your information in, say when you sent it in, and they'll open an investigation on it. Your card is on camera from the entire time it arrives at PSA, it gets unboxed, it's on camera right through till it goes out the door again. So if it is a high value card, I would suggest definitely going that route. And if they can determine that it happened there, then PSA will compensate you.
Sounds good. Thank you for that. Thank you for the question. Card is approximately 100 Canadian as slabbed. So probably be scenario A then.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, and it just comes to that value time. Like, it sucks. I hate to even determine a value because, that card could be something that you had all your life and it means a lot to you, and money's not the only issue. So I don't like to usually put that out there like that. But again, if it's just, depends on the situation, we deal with it differently. But we'll definitely take care of the customer to the best of our ability.
Sounds fair. Thank you for that. So I think kind of to your point a little bit earlier from what we were talking about, I'm going to be curious because I know hockey's thing is always to like pick one specific event. One specific event is not going to spike anything. I do think, though, it'll be interesting to see how people do play the Jordan Love thing. So that's why, to me, it's fascinating because it's basically been two quarterbacks for the better part of the last 30 years. So now we're entering into a bit of uncharted waters now. It's been 15 years since the last time anybody else has really contended. And that makes the football side of things very interesting. Good stuff. Very good. Thank you for that. Brad is a in quotation marks. Good guy. I like that he put it in. Like they put in quotation marks. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
I know. I gotta. I've done that my entire life.
Well, the problem is if we had a bingo card for it, it would just be good guy on every single thing. That's all we would have. It's like you can still bingo it. Just wait. You'll get enough.
I had Sherry said she was actually proud of me this week. I sent a few messages to I think I had kind of a bad. There was a point where it's just overwhelming this week. So a couple of days I actually went back at some customers where I don't want to think harshly, but just when they were definitely in the wrong, there's a point, no matter who you are, whenever you are, when you get 12 or 13 missed phone calls in a 2-minute span. Like there's a point. Like people just gotta back off a little bit.
That's fair. I like this one. Sorry, Luke, I'm bad. That doesn't leave a lot of options for you. My apologies. I already have my niche carved out. I've got my niche carved out already. So, Luke, just kind of a quick question here. Obviously, you didn't get a chance to visit the trip. Is there anything that you would have wanted to ask? This is more of a hypothetical than anything else. Is there anything that would have been curious for you? Anything that you would have asked if you had the same platform to be able to kind of basically ask whatever you wanted or look over any aspect of the process? Anything that would have interested you?
The one thing for sure is that, and it comes down to the thing, like back when COVID was happening and supplies were really in demand and stuff like that, like a lot of guys were asking what happens to those semi-rigids that are sent in with it. Sure, it goes through all the process and the grader looks at it, but then what happens afterwards when he takes it out and it goes to slabbing? Like, do they recycle it? Do they resell it? Do they, what do they do with it?
So this is every individual card gets stickered with a serial number on it. So if it ever goes anywheres, so every one of those has a sticker. Every card saver has a sticker put on it by PSA. Wow. So if you have a 500 card order, when it comes in, every card gets stickered. So say if at one point along the process, it's still humans doing it, but imagine if a human dropped an order with 500 cards in it and it all went, it's all serial numbered in that. So every holder has a sticker attached to it. So
that's why when it's minimum size or altered or things like that, there's a sticker on there, and those stickers have the serial number
correct
that are on there, right? So makes sense.
So every one of them has that. So again, is there a whole bunch of used card savers and holders with stickers? Yes. I should mention that too. I think we talked about it, Carlos, but when I talk more with the head grader, these are humans that receive these orders. So if they receive an order, and he never came out and said this to me, but it just makes sense. The better you can have your order, the neater, the more organized, the cards are in the proper card savers, everything about that just, I don't want to say makes the grader in a better mood, but it just shows that you take care of your cards more. Like if a grader sits there and has 5 cards that came in screw downs and he has to take them out of screw downs before he gets to them, like that's a lot of extra work, right? So if you can prepare your orders properly, it makes the whole process easier, from the research team, the receiving team, all that makes a difference. And he explained the importance of people, please do not put tabs and stickies on, like people that use the pullouts and all that. None of that stuff is needed. In a perfect world, the grader wants to receive the card in a card saver with no sleeve, no anything, just the card itself in there. Now that's easier on vintage cards. If you have modern cards that have autographs, you don't want them to scratch, make sure you use a card sleeve and you either cut the corner or you buy an easy one that has the corner off it, because the grader will put that card back into that when it goes on the next routes. So however he receives it, he has to put it back. Eliminate any chance of friction along the process. So that's one of the things he did talk to me about. And I said, I want to make sure I push this to all our clients, make sure we do that.
All right.
That starts also with us too when we receive the cards.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Don't need a lot of tape on the thing. Doesn't need to be, like taped all over and it takes forever, and then it's also
So what you're saying is, so this is a no, is what you're trying to get at. I've received packages
100%.
like this. I literally had it within arm's reach, and I was like, "So what you're saying is no on this one?
And it looks like electrical tape, so don't use electrical tape either.
Yeah.
It's not getting out. It's not escaping."
But it's true, and you look at a top loader, like I mean, the cards shift in top loaders. You know, in a card saver is absolutely the safest way that you can transport a card between two pieces of cardboard. It's like a brick. It's perfect. So I want to make sure we do that. And to answer the question too, they do not cut the cards out of the semi-rigids. The graders, he does exactly what we do. They do exactly what, if you're looking at cards, the cards come in, open up, you pull the card out, they look at it, they examine it, they grade it, they put it back in the holder, and away it goes.
Fair enough. Sounds good. So Josh here, I don't know if you saw this one, Sherry, but Josh can get the order number. So if that's possible, that'd be great. Thank you. Throwing it in there. So Jeff, good evening. Check out the first hour replay. Appreciate it. Sounds good.
I thought I gave it to you, Josh. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Thanks for the note. I will stop tabbing my cards and look for the better sleeves. Good stuff. Yeah, no, it's one of those things. Anything that, like, if we're being practical about it, I do appreciate that they have certain, tips that they can offer. So I think that's a good thing. I think that's interesting. I guess what it really comes down to is anything that reduces the amount. I guess maybe the best way to put it is anything that reduces the likelihood of causing an accident because of the process of taking a card out of whatever holder. We can go back to Brad's personal favorite, the little plastic slip one. We had the running joke with Sherry and everything was that somebody came in with one of those things in the holder in PSA Canada, and they were looking at it, and I managed to help them get it out. But it's not my card. But at the same time, I'm like, all right, let me just pretend it's my card. let me do what I can. So yeah, exactly. So I said, let me do what I can to get it out of here. However, I've been handling cards for a very long time. I've been dealing with a lot of those holders for a very long time, and I was being careful. But could you imagine how disastrous it would be if you gave that to somebody else who's like, well, I got to do X amount of cards today, and however much time I'm spending on this, what if I try a little too hard, put friction and crack the thing, and all of a sudden we've created a disaster? Yeah, that's an extreme example, but it's the same principle.
Absolutely. And anytime you get cards that come in, like these are the tall, these ones are called tall grading.
Semi-rigids.
Yep. Right. But you can get the ones that are smaller, that are the size down. Honestly, do not use those. For starters, it's hard as hell to get your card into them. And you got to think the grader has to pull them out and get those back into them as well. There's more of a chance that something's going to happen. So do not. And right there. That's exactly what you want to use. Right.
The red ones. I think the other ones are blue.
Yeah. And I think, do they say tall on the package? I think they say.
So here's the thing. I'm going to see if I can find it, but there is another red one. That's the smaller ones that you're talking about, though.
Right.
Like, there is another one, and it's a red box as well, so that kind of throws it off. So I'm informing you.
But I think it's red with blue on there or something. But no, they don't say tall on these ones. On the box itself, like on the shipping box, it says tall, but
right.
Yeah, usually I think it says it's the number 2s. There's like semi-rigid 1s and semi-rigid 2s.
So it's Cardboard Gold that did the job of putting those numbers on it. So Cardboard Gold did a good job. Ultra Pro, though, makes semi-rigid ones that are very small, that are basically the size of the card. I'll see if I can find an example to show you, but like and the box looks very similar to the one you're talking about. I think it's these ones here, but I could be mistaken, but I think it's in the same ballpark. So real quick. So you can kind of compare it to the box you have there, Luke. So I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of versions of this box. Well, one of them is the small ones, and then one of them is the ones that you're talking about. So you have to be careful when you're looking at it. Look at the dimensions, look at the way it's set up. But there's one that is actually like this. I don't know if it's exactly this box, but it's very similar to it that I can tell you are much smaller.
That is this one.
Yeah.
But there's another one the box is almost identical to the one I just showed you, but it is smaller. And I can just tell you it is right off the top.
Yeah. And you'll know the other. I mean, they're almost like 50% of the size. So like they're so much.
Basically, you take a regular trading card and there's almost no extra space. The best simplest way to do it is you try to put a regular card in. Yes, you can get it in, but there's almost no margin. There's almost no room for any. It's not supposed to move, but it's got almost no margin built into it. So real quick here, I really like this discussion of the grading process, as I know it's a mystery to many out there. No, absolutely. Well, the point of here is that please ask the questions. We'll get the answers to the best of our ability, and we can offer at least a little bit of it. However, since screw downs it is, yes, sir. Make sure to hot glue gun the screws. Just if you know, you know. Yep, forgot about the light. I forgot about me, Luke. There you go. So, Luke, you got to get the man his order number. Got to get the man his order number. I was told once upon a time that graders appreciated the pull tab, so that's why I did it. I feel like we get a little bit of a conflicting information. I'll go with Brad since he was most recently speaking to the head grader. So we'll go with what the head grader says in this instance.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the other one you don't want to get. It's a block.
Yeah, okay, so it's a black one. So similar to the one I showed, but a black box, basically. But if you notice, the picture of it is very similar to it. It's very close. So it's very easy to mix the two up. So I think that'll be better. I think it helps that the example that we showed here, the red one, says graded card submission specifically on it. So that might be helpful, might make it a little bit better. And it says it's got a little bit of extra room on the lip, so that might be helpful. Are Card Saver 1s smaller than Card Saver 2s?
Yes.
Yeah. Bobby Burrell, good evening. Go big or not at all semi-rigid? Facts, sir. Logan says, don't be fooled like me when I ran around trying to find a box in Toronto. But that's the reason why I made that point, though, is that if you looked at the two boxes outside of the color, it's Ultra Pro. It shows the same picture of the same catcher in a semi-rigid. It's very close. It's if I just hand it to you and say, oh, yeah, go get me a box of semi-rigids, and you don't know exactly what you're looking for, guess what? It'd be very easy to come back with it. You got the right brand. You got the right product, you think, but then you go check it, and it's actually a little bit small.
That's what Logan did.
Yep.
Yeah, Logan. We sent Logan on he was good enough to help us out. We sent him to find more card savers because we ran out, and he came back. He was all happy after an hour of scavenging the whole expo. He came back and he's like, I got them, and they were those little ones. I'm like, can't use those. Not a chance in hell.
And they still sell a lot of them, and they still sell a ton of them, and they're out there. Card Saver ones from Cardboard Gold. Yep. Cardboard Gold is one of the normal brands that are out there quite a bit. Exactly what I did. Yeah. Sounds fair.
We should say thank you to Logan, Luke. He officially sold the cup. What was it, a 9 autograph booklet?
9-way,
that Luke pulled out. So Logan was part of that process, and he was able to sell that. So thank you, Logan.
Thanks,
All
Logan.
right. Now, we don't need specific numbers, but just out of curiosity, how far, based on street value, are we anywhere close to break even? Are we ahead? Are we still way behind? Like, where are we sitting after that sale? Again, you can ballpark it. I'm just kind of curious.
I think we'll be down a little bit, but depends on how it is. But you know what? There was another 9-way that was listed for $10K US.
Oh, and an SP Legends case. You're going to buy an SP Legends case to make up the difference? Is what you're telling me?
And they just reduced the price.
I kid.
5K.
Reduce the price on which one?
To 5K.
For what?
Let's do it.
No chance. So
you're saying you learned your lesson?
That ship's sailed, eh?
Yep, that ship has sailed. That is gone. I will show them. I showed the guys before we jumped on the show, but my Alec Manoa has come home, so very excited about this.
There you go.
So his 1-of-1 superfractor. So now we have four of the 5 reds, and we have the superfractor. So once he wins the Cy Young this year, me and Carlos can have a great conversation about this. So.
Oh no, we can have as many conversations you want. Like, that's not gonna help.
Cy Young award winner.
I think he's gonna need about 5 Cy Youngs for you to feel good about that one.
Okay.
It's gonna take a lot. Pitchers don't get a lot of love. Like,
I agree.
Yeah, like it's one of those things. Like, how much? It's like he won the Cy Young. Cool, man. There's a lot of guys who won saying, I don't know, man. I don't know. How many likes? 10K. We're gonna need a lot of likes for sure. Yep. There you go. Yeah. Nobody in this panel ruined the hobby people love, despite our best efforts. I try so hard, Brad. I try to ruin the hobby people love, but here we are, despite our best efforts. But yeah, it's just the way it is. Like, I think you have to take a lot of it. I think, and it's been a reoccurring theme that we talked about here, and I've talked about it on the Friday show. You will get so much more out of this hobby if you go in with your eyes open, just pay attention, and understand why you're trying to do stuff. Even when we did the thing with the cup, we knew the deck was stacked against it, but it was fun. It was fun to watch, and Luke enjoyed himself, which is the important thing. As long as he enjoyed himself, look, I'm happy. I'm happy to hear that because it was going to be tough. It was going to be tough. Not impossible. You never know. It could have worked out, but it was always going to be tough. Opening boxes for that purpose is never necessary. It's an ROI negative activity. It's just the
But
reality.
so much fun.
I totally agree with you, but we have to understand that. Only Brad shows love to a pitcher. He really does.
I know. Him and Nate Pearson.
Yeah. Otani seems to get a lot of love because of his bat. That is correct. If he was just a pitcher, no one would care. Yep.
It was actually, I think this negotiation on this card went for a week. It was a week-long negotiation back and forth. And it was Kyle from KK Sports that looked at me. He's like, you're within $1,000. Like, you just got to pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what did me in. So I did it.
Nice. Fair enough. So real quick, I'll share it one more time just since we talked about it a little earlier. So I've got the image, so I'll share it since I've got it. So this is what we talked about. We talked about the boxes and everything. So here, just to see it one more time, is the box in question. This is the correct one. The black one, Ultra Pro, semi-rigid. So this right here is the other one. So that's the other one here. This is going to be the one that's going to, again, looks very similar to the first box, but there is a little bit of a difference. So you do have to pay attention. The other one literally says graded card submission. To just be aware there is a little bit of a difference to it. Otherwise, it creates a bit of an issue for you.
What does that one say? Half-inch lip? What does the other one say?
Half-inch lip. I'll put them side by side.
Half-inch.
Yeah, let me see if I can do a little side by side here if I can. I might be able to do that. Hang on 1 second here.
It's a 2.5 on the top. Like it's 2.5 instead
Here,
of 3.5.
Here, I can actually show them side by side. So if you look here, holds cards. So this one here, the dimensions on holds cards is actually bigger.
There you go.
And 4 grading submissions. The lip is the same, clear vinyl and 200 card holds a storage box. So a lot of the wording is exactly the same. The picture is the same. The brand is the same. 2 different colors on the box, but there is a difference when you actually compare the 2 side by side. There you go. So if you can see there's more text on the one on the left. And it specifically says graded card submission. It's more red. And it shows a bigger card size. Holds cards up to certain dimension. But if you just look at the picture real quick, I could totally see somebody messing that up if you didn't give them that a context.
Yeah, no, big time. That's it.
It's so
we can
close.
always say now too, make sure it says graded card submission on the box. So.
That is correct. That'll save you a lot of extra headache.
And
Because
it's
they're
cheaper.
really close. The 2 side by side, you saw how close they were if you're not paying close attention. You just see Ultra Pro, you see, oh yeah, semi-rigid, great. Grab the box. It's not the one you want.
It's also cheaper too, I think.
Yep. No worries. Look, let us not be said that we're not trying to give a little education here where we can. In addition to the Tom Brady slander and questioning pitching prospects, it's like not investment advice. Totally not investment advice.
I know. We will see. I publicly put myself out there when we make purchases and we tell it how it is. We talk about our losses and we talk about our wins.
I look forward to the day years from now. It's like, Carlos, I did it. I sold the Manoa for $13,000. And I go, Brad, $13,000 is what I paid for my coffee. Inflation is a hell of a thing. It's like, well, I did it anyway. It was 13. Bought it for 12, sold for 13. There we go.
I love it.
That's actually what I think some people are holding out on, Brad. I think some people are holding on. It's like, one day I'm going to sell this for more than I bought it for. Yeah, but with inflation, everything will cost more than what you bought it for. That's not the same. That doesn't count.
Yeah.
Good try, though. I appreciate you.
And I will mention that it's kind of like you though. If it goes to zero, I can't see it ever going to zero. But if it does, that's part of the game. So you got to know what you're doing. This is not investment advice in any way, shape, or form.
Nope.
This is for the love of the hobby, to have my favorite pitcher, the future of the Blue Jays, to have his absolute best card in the world, no questions asked. Makes me feel good.
Somewhere off of the distance, Ricky Romero is giving a single tear on your wonderful, wonderful statement. I remember Ricky Romero, single tear. Yep. So Albert says, I still need a holder for my tall boy. Bought top loaders and penny sleeves, both too short for my card. Yeah, the top loader ones are a little tricky to come by. They're almost specialty at this point. Like, there's just not.
Go
ahead.
Sorry, they actually have top loaders for that and semi-rigids for
They do.
tall boy thing.
They do.
Yeah.
Yep. But it's almost a specialty item though, because the tall boys just never took off as a format. So they're out there, but you got to kind of really look for them. Are there card savers for thick cards, or do they prefer top loaders for them?
Yeah, you don't want to damage your card. So, I mean, I think you can put anything safely into a card saver up to about 100 point, 75 point for sure. I think you can fit most 100 points in them if you wanted to. But anything above that, you have to use top loaders. So,
yeah.
You can stretch out that plastic too, like the semi-rigid a little bit.
If you
Stick
go,
your fingers in there
you
and
could
make it a little
go,
bit
you
bigger.
could go a couple of sizes bigger if you really wanted to. It'd be kind of awkward though. I'll be honest. It would be a little awkward, but you could, like, you could grab a gigantic, like a very large semi-rigid, and there you go. You got a lot of extra flex to play with. I just don't know how comfortable you'd be. I'd almost rather put in a top loader at that point. Like, this is me. Jeff was asking about Series 2. We did talk about it. So what was the date? Sorry, what was the proposed date so far? It's early April.
April 5th.
April 5th. Okay, thank you for that. BCW has the tall boy stuff. Yep. About an eighth of an inch too short for the BCW. Interesting. Usually they're pretty good with that. Okay, so thank you, Albert. Nico, Brad, are you still an Nate Pearson fan? I have a Ben Baller gold auto of Pearson, if you're interested. I'm going to send it in for grading with you guys this April.
So I'm still rooting for Nate Pearson. We have a substantial investment into Nate Pearson. But I personally, I have to say he lacks, after seeing him last year, he lacks the killer instinct. And I hope he can do something this year, but I've lost all faith in him, to tell you the truth. So,
Wow, all faith. Ooh,
I have.
strong. That's strong.
Unless he comes out, he's such a big burly guy, but he looks scared on the mound. Like, you can't be a successful pitcher with that. Speaking of that, off topic, but today I was at my nephew's. They're playing in the provincials under U15.
Okay.
And a friend of mine, Bob, told me that the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League is announcing that no more fighting.
I heard this. I don't know too much about it, but I had heard it. But before we go off that, because I love this topic, but I want to finish a thought on the pitcher.
Yeah.
I love nothing more than the idea of Brad going to Nate, saying, Nate Pearson, I believed in you, Nate, but you have to have killer instinct. He's like, who are you? Sweep the leg, Nate. Sweep the leg. I would love Brad. He's such a nice guy. Such a nice guy. All of a sudden, he's like, you must kill this man. Aim for his head. It's like, wow, okay, calm down. Calm down there. All of a sudden, we have to restrain you, and you're the reason the Quebec Major Junior is banning fighting. Settle down there.
I love it. But you know what I mean? Every time a batter faces Manoah, they're like, oh boy, what's going to happen with this beast? Hopefully some Manoah can rub off on Pearson.
I told you. Luke, I'm seeing it right now. I'm seeing Brad out there being like, sweep the leg. Manoah would sweep the leg. If you know, you know. Trust me. If you know, you know. That's all I'm saying, man. I'm worried. I'm concerned. I got issues with this. Thank you for the question. I heard of that. Yep. Rule is proposed, but I guess Quebec government has to pass a law outlawing fighting in amateur sport. So let's talk about this for a second. We'll kind of finish off on this thought because this is a fun topic to kind of finish off on. A fun, light topic, but a good discussion. Hockey is a fun sport in many ways. But one of the things about it is that fighting is kind of part of it. And I disagree with everything Don Cherry says because he's a moron. However, with that said, just leave this thing. Like, do we really care that much? Like, people are there when the hockey fight starts. The people are watching. The people are paying attention. And it's not like it's an everything occurrence. And there are a lot of guys who will not drop the gloves. That's not their thing. That's not what they do. And a lot of times we got guys who basically do that. And other guys who are willing to do it under the right circumstances, they will participate and partake. Is it really going to make that much of a difference? Like, we have a penalty for it. Now, if you want to, honestly, you don't have to ban fighting at all. If you want to make it so that fighting is minimized, if that's your concern, well, then enforce the existing rule and just make the penalty harsher. Just make it a game misconduct if you fight at all. But you can still fight. If you really believe you need to and you have to do it, then that's fine, but just make it a game misconduct. Yeah. You don't have to do anything crazy.
I agree. And the game has evolved an awful lot. Like, again, I was a big guy. I wasn't a fighter by any means, but I was never, if I had to, I could hold my own. But if you look at, I was scared. There was games where I was petrified. I stepped on the ice. Like, I think I talked about it in Laval one time. And I remember thinking, I don't know if I'm going to get off this ice alive. You know what I mean? Like Marty Lapointe and these guys out there skating around circles, like ready to rip your head off. They wanted to kill you. And, Joel Theriault, Patrick Cote, Worrell, Larocque. I mean, LaRock wasn't that. I mean, he was tough as nails, but he wasn't that. Some of these guys were psychotic. Like they drafted guys out of jail, right? And they were just out there to do one thing, and it was to physically hurt you. I
Little
don't.
did you guys know that Brad played against the Charlestown Chiefs.
Yeah,
Little
yeah.
did you all know.
You want to? So my year at Beauport, if I played with Patrick Cote, and you just Google Patrick Cote. We went through it one night and just see where he's at in the stage in his life. And Joel Theriault, another guy, I think he's still fighting in Quebec Senior League, and he's 45 years old now. He's gone his like 2000th fight. But these guys were mean guys ready to hurt. I'm glad to see that element of the out of the game. You know, like that's why we have UFC. You know what I mean? That's why there's boxing, kickboxing. I'm glad that's gone, but I don't want to see. I still think fighting can be part of the game in a decent way, if that makes any sense. Like
that's why I said I think you could accomplish what you want to accomplish. To leave it to, there is a purpose to it sometimes for certain teams and certain players to set a tone or give a message or whatever. So that's part of it. But look, like I said, all you'd have to do is just make the penalty enough where somebody's like, look, if you want to do this, you can. There is a penalty. Or like I said, you don't have to even make it a game misconduct. You could make it like a 10-minute major where you're out. You're completely unavailable for like half a period or a full period. You can make it a full period penalty if you want. And it can extend to the next game if you basically make it punitive enough where like you shouldn't be doing this willy-nilly. You shouldn't just be doing it for fun. But if you feel you need to do this, have at it. And the referees stand back, let whatever happens, and afterwards assess the penalty.
But I don't think the game's like that anymore. I don't think it's like, they just want to go out to fight.
Well, that was my initial point though. Like it's not, most players are not out there looking to do that first.
No. But like even like look at Nugent Hopkins the other day. I mean, he's a scorer. He's he's gentle as you can be, but he got in a fight. Why? Because he had to do it. For whatever reason. He's protecting his teammate, or somebody did something to him or whatever it was. But I mean, he's not out there to fight everybody, but he will when he has to, right? So
yeah. Well, I guess even if it's outlawed, you can still do it. You're just kicked out of the game.
But but that to me is like the perfect balance of the two things. It's like, look, we're making it clear that we're not advocate. The NHL could literally say, like, look, we're not advocating for this clearly, or the Quebec Major Junior in this case. We're not encouraging you to do this. There is a penalty for it. But at the same time, do what you got to do, and then we'll assess it after. Right? I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable. That gives everybody, the paying customers will still get their fights when the moment is right, when the situation warrants it. If the teams are really getting that chippy, maybe that's going to happen anyway. The players will be like, all right, screw it. We're going to do it anyway. Well, then fine. No problem. Assess the penalty after and then move on with your day.
So just my question with what Rod said or whatever, it's they're outlawing fighting in amateur sport. Is that like amateur hockey sports, or is that like, because what happens with amateur UFC fighting?
I'm not sure
anymore.
But major junior is not amateur sport. You're a paid professional if you play major junior. So I think that's a mix up. That's because you get paid to play. So you are no longer an amateur. That was always the big rule when we played. If you wanted to go to the US or not, you didn't want to play one game in major junior. If you played a game in major junior, you'd lose your eligibility to go to college in the US.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think what's here, so let's touch on this piece a little bit here. I don't know what hockey fights y'all are watching, but the majority of hockey fights are, I'm going to grab your jersey, you're going to grab my jersey, and we're doing a lot of this. And yes, punches are being swung, but I think I've got a better chance of hitting Brad right now than half of those punches do. And we're in different provinces. I'm a lot closer to hitting him right now than some of those hockey fight punches are. There's no contact being made, or they're hitting somebody's shoulder. Like it's not like a devastating knockout happening most of the time. Those are the ones that'll make like the big highlights. People will see those ones, but the majority of them, the guy's barely been touched. He's scuffed up a little bit. His jersey is wrinkled, but that's like that's like the bulk of the damage being done. So if you're showing up messed up or dead, then we got issue. We got to have a discussion about your medical history. There's something wrong right now. And the other piece is for combat sports. Here's an important piece. The guys that are professionally fighting, or girls, in combat sports, if somebody gets knocked out, there's an automatic suspension period where they can't fight again. There's a period of time that they have to be away because that's part of it. As soon as you get knocked out and you participate in a fight like that, then you have to take some time away no matter what. and then they'll assess you, and if you're good, then you can set back in. But they don't allow you to run back out there and have another fight right away. That's not the way that works. In a lot of ways, UFC for a lot of fighters is a hell of a lot safer than even boxing was back in the day. Because boxing, you took way more shots to the head in boxing, and you did it over 12 rounds. UFC, most fights are 3 rounds, 15 minutes, and you can also kick, you can also grapple. You're not beating somebody with grappling necessarily, so you're a lot of them are taking less damage, not more damage.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends. Like I said, to each their own. I do think in some ways MMA is a little bit safer because you can actually beat somebody without knocking them out. You can tap them out. You don't. The tap out doesn't involve you hitting them in the head. You can just put them in a guillotine, or you can put them in an arm lock or arm bar or something like that, and you win the fight.
Except the old UFC stuff.
Well, the old UFC stuff, there were no weight classes, Luke. It was a sumo wrestler versus the
I know.
120-pound guy. a little different. That one was closer to the human cockfighting side of things. That was the analogy used. And, sir, I watched those early UFCs. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Single tier. Them's the days.
Yeah,
They didn't ban fighting in that one. They just changed it.
I agree.
All right, folks. Last thoughts. Let's start winding her down on that. That was kind of a fun conversation, but thank you. Thank you for bringing it up. That was fun. Royce Gracie style. That's right. That's right. Pro Board versus Domi days are long gone. Absolutely. The professional goon doesn't serve most of those teams. You're not going to have a roster spot for that anymore. That's why I say, like, naturally it's tapered down. You'll still see fights for sure. But even in the professional level, like, or in the NHL level, are you seeing fights every game? No, absolutely not. Not really. Like, how often, honestly? People are watching tons of hockey right now. How often do you actually see a fight? Like a good fight. I don't just mean 2 guys grabbing the jersey and pulling. How often? If we're being honest.
Yeah, you just don't.
Yeah, it's not that crazy. Like, you'll still find them, no doubt, but it's not a regular occurrence. It's not all the time. Keith Hackney versus Emmanuel Yarborough. Check it out. There you go.
I just pulled their cards actually out of Legends.
Ooh. Deep cut. See, that was a shot that actually landed, Luke. That was a shot that, like, staggered. And the guy falls down. It's like, oh man, brutal. I told you, Brad is slowly going over to the ways here, Luke. I'm seeing it. All of a sudden he's like, Nate Peterson, sweep the leg. And he's like, boom, shot from beyond. I don't know, man.
What's worse is that Brad actually opened Legends then.
No, I did not open one single box. We are.
Did anybody in the store open any boxes for singles though?
No, absolutely not. I told them no. We're not doing that. We're completely sold out. We sold out every box. It's gone, and it's it. So hopefully the guy that pulled Sergio Momesso, it's not watching.
Did you sell it out and like give like condolence cards with every single box? Like did you tape it on? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Guys loved it. I know some guys loved it, and the price point that's not Upper Deck's. Upper Deck can't.
Yeah, that's secondary market. That's secondary market. Yeah.
Right. You know, at the price point that Upper Deck put it out there for, it was a lot better. But the secondary market doubled the price on it. So.
No, it's fair. Reeves the only tough guy left in the NHL. Great show as always. Thank you very much, Hunting Hits. Folks, a pleasure. A lot of fun hanging out. Appreciate you. Thank you, Brad. Thank you for joining us. We're back. So we're going to be doing the shows here. We'll start planning out some different things through, especially as we're going to start getting to Spring Expo. So we'll get a chance to talk about that in a couple of weeks. We're doing the WBC now, so I'm having some fun watching that. And then pitchers and catchers are already reported, but we're getting closer to the regular season. So we're getting back into the sports coming back on, and hockey's starting to heat up. Next time we can talk a little bit about Luke. This is your opportunity. So you got a week here to prep. So if you're going to do, you already did your Jason Robertson pump. So if you're going to do one, we can talk about Connor McDavid and the rarefied air points-wise he's getting to. He's getting to that rarefied air. We haven't seen 130 points plus in quite a long time. That's kind of interesting.
He's over that already.
I thought he was 129. Has he scored again?
I think he had a point last night or the other day or whatever. So I thought he got to 130.
But I know I was looking up the list of most points in a season, and he was right there he was literally in the top 50. But what happens is a couple of points and you immediately shoot up a bunch of spots. Because there are a bunch of guys who had 129 points. Let's see, Connor McDavid. Now I'm kind of curious. I want to make sure I get this right.
129, yeah. But I think he got an assist tonight.
Yeah. So right now, a couple more points, and he's still got time left. So he could very easily get into the high 130s, low 140s, And that would be huge because it's been literal decades since we've seen anybody in that stratosphere, anywhere in that
He's,
level.
he assisted on Yamark's goal tonight.
All right. So that's point number 130. Box came in today. Steve bought it. It was sold in less than 5 minutes. Gotcha. All right, man. Fair enough. When he hits 200, well, he doesn't have a guy on the take. So, Brad, you know this guy, right? He's talking about this Wayne guy. He's got a secondary assist guy in the background. Did you know that Wayne Gretzky just got a secondary assist just now? I think he was eating his dinner. He just got a secondary assist. It was incredible. Y'all got to go back and watch the highlights. Gretzky only scored like 5 points a year. The rest of it's just help from the secondary assist guy. It's crazy. All right, folks, have yourself a great evening. If you could hit the like on the way back, on the way out, Eric personally appreciates it. He personally vouches for every single like and validates it on the show. Otherwise, we'll be back next week, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, same thing. And if you check it out on the replay and you got any questions pertaining to anything we talked about, feel free to throw them in the comments section and we'll deal with them there and we'll try to respond to them in kind. Have yourselves a good one. We'll catch you in the next one.